All right, this is Life Update email number 81. Okay, after mostly finishing my last Life Update, I got a call from MD Anderson, and they were like, "You are coming to Texas." And I was like, "Oh, I am? Well, I guess in that case, good talk." And so I decided to hold off on starting IV vitamin C, and instead got to work on booking a flight and hotel. And then went to work, finagled with flight and hotel details while at work, and then I felt pretty bad keto flu symptoms, which was unpleasant. Nevertheless, I was able to finish the last Life Update before going and playing Magic. Then, when I got back home, I did FoodTube, and then for realsy finished the last Life Update. Previously, I forgot to add something. Then I went to sleep. I got to sleep in the next day, which was a wunderbar. And then I just did a lot of small things and kind of got my life organized. I get a very strong sense of satisfaction from accomplishing all those small accumulated tasks like folding the laundry and replying to unanswered emails. Very cathartic. Then I did funime, worked on sorting through magic cards for about 2 hours, read some, and then Braden came over and we took a short drive in the beautiful fall weather and then talked on the front porch for a while. 'Twas a good conversation. Once that wrapped up, I did funime, read some more, and then took a drive with Katie, Emerson, and Grace, which was pretty decent. But once we got back home, it was back to the grind, and I read until I slept. Upon the morrow, I walked with Morgan, and then Grace, her, and me went to Little Bird, where I studied cancer stuff. Here's a picture of that. I then had a very serious conversation with Mom once I got back, which was good, but she's right, kind of sad. ... I think that may be a typo. I'm not exactly sure how I was supposed to read that. I got back, which was good, but she's right, kind of sad. Yeah, I think maybe that's supposed to say she's all right. From there, I read. Thence, I journeyed to Noah's estate and read/vibed for 2.5 hours. Once I got home, I got this autonomous AI agent Cloud prototype on my computer where it can take control of your desktop and look things up for you, as well as perform basic tasks like putting the things it looks up into a spreadsheet. Still very experimental, but super cool. Basically, it's your own personal INTP. I then did FoodTube with the fam, and once that completed, began the very laborious task of pillbox building. I don't think you understand the sheer volume of drugs and supplements I manage. I have this super dosage sheet that is min-maxed for all the things, and while that's great and all, just putting them all in the appropriate boxes with the appropriate amounts is so time-consuming. Like, I literally spent 3 hours straight just putting pills in boxes. And that's just the pills. That's not counting all the liquid supplements I put in vials. So yeah, it was a lot of work. But at 11 at night, I finished doing this. That's 2 weeks worth of pills, folks. And every one of these boxes is absolutely packed. Like, I had to put some pills in the wrong slot because I couldn't fit them, ... Once I finally finished that, I figured out just how much turmeric stains everything. And then I did a bunch of small things before going to sleep. The next day, I met with my new oncologist guy. He was okay, but not great. I get the distinct vibe that he talked with Dr. McFarland and hence is trying to sound more democratic and open-minded because he knows strong-arm me won't work. But I bet, in the end, he's going to say salvage or bust. But hey, we'll see. Once I got home from UC Health, I got another call from MD Anderson, and they were like, "Are you an incompetent human that can't operate the interwebs?" And I was like, no, I am not, ... And they were like, "Oh, well, very good." And that was that, XD. I then read my cancer books until David came over, and then we lifted together before chilling in the hot tub at CSU. And might I just say, apparently I have been working out wrong, because the next 2 days, my biceps were cooked. Like, I always go until I'm exhausted, so nothing really changed as far as how hard I tried. But when I was with David, the particular exercises he did and focus on good form, it made a huge difference. And apparently, I need to figure out how to work out because I don't know what I'm doing, XD. See, I have the books on the subject, but lol, I just haven't read them because cancer, ... Maybe if things take a turn for the better, I'll take a break from cancer research to figure that side of health out. But such a time has not yet come. Hence, once I got back from working out and hanging with David, I read more cancer stuff. I then did funime before Noah proceeded to come over, and we had a very good conversation on the front porch. I actually love that man's mind. No one else stimulates my thinky organ like him. And then once he left, I got to work building my supplement vials, which, just like my pills, took ages. Like I started at 9 and finished at 11:30, so it took me 2.5 hours to make this. Is that your own, like, personal mini fridge for drugs? That's kind of cool. Hence, in total, to just put all my supplements and drugs in containers for 2 weeks, it takes me 5.5 hours. That is dumb, and I dislike it. But what can you do? ... It's lengthy menial labor or death. So I choose lengthy menial labor, XD. The one upside to all the menial labor, though, is I get to listen to personality hacker podcasts. So it's still productive, ... The next morning was Friday, and I got my blood drawn to see if my 1,000 drugs were murdering my liver. And the good news is, the answer turned out to be a no. So yay! That's actually huge, because before the supplements and drugs I was taking was causing some serious increase in my liver enzymes, and it was getting dangerous. So thankfully, it would seem either the liver support supplements I added or the fact that I stopped taking atorvastatin seemed to be working. So yeah, that was very good news, even if it doesn't determine much of anything. After getting that done, I went to work, read while at work, wandered CSU with Neo and Sydney because there was a homecoming thing at CSU, and that was kind of meh. Then I played 1v1 Magic with Neo, which was nice. Been an age since I did that. And then I called with Liam and talked about spiral dynamics, which I actually enjoyed a good amount too, just because I got to talk about something other than cancer, and that was nice. The next morning, I took dedicated time to just listen to the Personality Hacker podcast and take notes. I then ate the food while talking with Jordan and catching up. From there, I did a vibe session at Sydney's for an hour and a half before then journeying to the Myers and doing more vibe session there until like 5:30 when they all left. Lily had good tea choice and inspired me to buy 48 assorted tea flavors so I can try all the teas. It was at this point in time I hit nutritional ketosis, aka the state in which you no longer feel bad on a ketogenic diet because your body decided to primarily burn ketones rather than carbs, and therefore also the state that should be best for eating cancer. Mom then made very tasty ketogenic food, and I watched anime before Katie and Emerson came over, and I talked with them briefly until Benj arrived and we racquetballed, in which I was obliterated to such a degree I would rather not speak of it, ... Oh, poor Alex. Then Benj and I came back to the house, and Ben was there, and we just chilled. I engaged in vivacious banter via online messaging platforms, until Katie, Grace, and Emerson returned, and then we listened to how Katie is a kingly man and shall not vote for I am a monarchist, dear father, and so on, XD. My confidence that she's an ENFP and not an INFP rises by the day, ... So yes, it was good vibes, and hence Nessa joined for the tail end of them, and then I Then I called it a night at midnight, because tomorrow I had church. The next day at church I was fashionable, or at least I thought so. I told Jake all about the cool new MBTI things I had learned on our walk during the service, and then I recounted the same information, though abridged, to the table at lunch. From there, I went home and I bought Wendy's just to see if I could get a bunless burger, and it have few enough carbs that I could eat and maintain ketosis nevertheless. The answer to that question was an enthusiastic yes. Thus, I found a food source for a while I was in Houston. Well, so I thought, except there were no Wendy's where I was at in Houston, so ... Then I did Funame while eating said Wendy's, did racquetball with Benj shortly after that, in which I think he won 6 games and I won 2, before proceeding to waste my life reading the most polemic and biased cancer book I have ever seen. I took a break from that to do Funame, got back to reading said polemic book, until I reached page 30, where it said, and I quote, "The old biology, based on the work of Louis Pasteur in the late 1800s, stems from the idea that disease comes from germs and bacteria which invade the body from outside. Simply put, the new biology states that there is only one sickness and one disease, and that this one sickness is the over-acidification of the body, due primarily to an inverted way of living, thinking, and eating. AKA, germs and bacteria don't exist. The only kind of illness comes from an imbalance in pH. AKA, the book is not just polemic, it's genuinely crazy." So yeah, the flat earth medical equivalent made me be like, okay, probably not worth it, ... And thus I yeeted that book. From there, Nessa, Benj, Grace, Johanna, Ben and I accidentally swapped Ben and Benj there. Sorry about that. And I all went over to CSU and played a pseudo hide and seek game, and then an actual hide and seek game in the CSU library. It was a good time. Here are some pictures I got from that venture. So yeah, that was brief but enjoyable. Should craft that game to make it a bit more streamlined and enjoyable. And yeah, that was basically the night. The next morning, I packed a bit for my trip to Texas. Went to work, worked on this life update email, and then read some of my new WACK cancer book. This book is still very dubious, but whenever I'm about to put it down because it's WACK, she says something that makes me be like, maybe it not WACK, but genius. And then I read on and go right back, or read on and go right back to being like, nah, bro, this is WACK, XD. I've toggled between those two positions for the last 100 pages, ... Like, she clearly knows legit real science. But some things she says, I'm like, what do you mean, the synchrometer? And yes, she literally always puts the trademark TM, which I'm like, extra sus. Picked up the biofrequency of H. pylori bacteria? So you're saying that this amazing medical device that can detect substances to the precision parts of a million just so happens to be something you not only invented, but that isn't in use in hospitals anywhere? Yeah, not buying it. But then, after that, she explains glycolysis, and the Krebs cycle beautifully and fully accurately. And I'm like, okay, but now it's legit. XD, or not XD, ... So yeah, weird book. I think I'm going to keep reading it for now, even if she does say her treatment only works if you pull out all your teeth. I'm pretty sure there's still some good stuff to be gleaned. I hope, ... XD. After getting back home, I then did a bunch of small stuff, attended Monday night, which was honestly boring. And then once I got home, I arrived only to discover a vivacious gathering consisting of social Emerson, a very different vibe from normal Emerson, mind you, and thus worth mentioning, XD, Katie, Grace, Nessa, Benj, and Ben, all congregating in the room. Then Ben was like, Alex, mobilize these baboons, to which I responded, the banana is loaded, and we mobilized. I'm curious, in this context, what's the banana? Whose vehicle is the banana? Or is it a euphemism for something else that I'm missing here? Anyway, because we had a very limited time frame, and honestly, I was tired, I just brought us back to the CSU library for hide and seek round 2, and it was decent. Then, once we got back, I pieced out to go to bed, but I got a text of pseudo-distress, and hence instead stayed up till 12:30, aiding said distress state. Worth it, but a big dumb decision, given I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning for my flight. Add on top of that I didn't actually get to sleep until 1:30, and you have the equation for sleep deprivation. Yay! So I woke up the next morning, grabbed some food, drove to DIA, and went through the whole rigmarole. But since I had like 30 minutes to kill before boarding my flight, I decided to wander around. And in doing so, I just so happened to pass this super fancy lounge area. And I was like, it'd be cool to go in there. And then I noticed that it was actually a Capital One lounge, and this credit card you needed to gain access was actually a card I had on me at the moment. See, right when my cancer journey started, Dad was big smart and invested in a credit card with really good cash back and rewards, and I've been doing all my purchases through that. And it turns out that one of the expensive fancy credit card rewards was free access to this very lounge twice a year. So I was like, heck yeah! And I went inside, and this place was sweet! Let me send some pics. Oh, it is actually, ooh. Okay. I'm just gonna, I don't read these before I narrate them, so I'm seeing these pictures for the first time. Give me a second to take a look at this. Interesting. Okay. Okay, nice. I don't know what that food is supposed to be. Looks like little wieners wrapped in buns. Little wieners wrapped in buns maybe in that photo. Okay. And the best part, they had free endless gourmet food. I was actually so sad because I'm on this keto diet and all. All I can eat is meat. Hence, I kept pulling the sausage out of the buns and just eating those. There were so many other delicious food items that it actually took an iron will to resist, XD. But I did it. Scarfed down as much free food as I could and then left the posh lounge and got to my gate with 10 minutes to spare. Dude, that's insane. You did all of that in 20 minutes? Gee whiz. And that was true, except it was 10 minutes to spare before departure, not before boarding, as I had supposed. Hence, after waiting 15 minutes and still seeing no calls to board or anyone linking up, I went up to the deck guy and was like, I just missed my flight, didn't I? And he was like, yep. And I was like, well, cool. I felt like an idiot and got to go problem solving, XD, aka booking a second flight. However, the next flight that wasn't $300, it was like $180, so significantly cheaper, wasn't until 8:30 p.m., a literal 12 hours from the present. So what did I do? Go back to the supermarket posh lounge, of course. It was, oh boy, this is interesting. It was nice for like the first 4 hours. Then I got used to it for the next 4, and then it just felt confining for the last 4. You can only admire a 12,000 square foot space for so long, no matter how fancy their paper towels. Though their paper towels were really fancy. Actually, just my favorite paper towels. Like, nice enough, I took one as a souvenir. But lol, then promptly threw it away once I got home, as I realized it was a dumb souvenir, XD. Then the other really sad thing was at 11, they changed their breakfast menu to their rest of the day food menu, which, unfortunately for me, had very little meat. And I didn't want to take a whole bowl of chicken tikka masala just to eat like 4 pieces of chicken and then throw the rest out. However, after eating only beef sticks I had packed for 8 hours, that is, in fact, exactly what I did. And while I could tell the servers deeply disapproved of me wasting 14 little bowls of tikka masala, 9 bowls of shrimp salsa something, and 7 posh ham sandwiches, it was free, I was hungry, and they couldn't stop me. Oh, dude. If I could have left and got McDonald's or something, I honestly would have, but I couldn't leave without using up my pass. Hence, I really had no choice. XD. So yeah, the shrimp, chicken, and ham were what I had. And yeah, other than wasting exorbitant amounts of food, the only other thing I did while in the fancy lounge was read my cancer book, the WACK one aforementioned, watch anime, and message people. Honestly, it was a productive 12 hours. But I just felt kind of exhausted at the end of it. Plus, if I tried to sleep, they would literally wake me up because it was a good look for the posh environment. Hence, I had no choice but to stay awake the whole time on my 3 hours of sleep I gleaned the night before. It was something of a predicament for sure. But eventually, I made it through, left the confines of my fancy lounge, and then sat in a plane for 2.5 hours, listening through this massive playlist of new music Ben sent me. He knows my taste quite well. I've added 75% of it to my It's Not That Bad playlist. Once I got to Houston at midnight, I then hailed a taxi. That was a fun first experience, and proceeded to get absolutely ripped off and charged $100 for a drive that Uber only charged me $35 for. AKA, the taxi driver could clearly tell I had never done this before, and took thorough advantage of that fact. ... But nevertheless, he did get me to the hotel I was staying at, and I managed to check in and get to sleep at 1:30. My only food being, once again, beef sticks. Here's a pic of my hotel room. Nice. Very, very hotel room. The next morning I woke up and was taking a shower, and it was at this point that I was absolutely flabbergasted to discover it had biceps. I'm confused. You mean I had biceps? Yes, that's what that's supposed to say. Taking a shower, I flabbergasted to discover I had biceps. You don't understand how much this caught me by surprise. I was literally just washing myself with soap, something I very rarely do, I'll be honest, XD. Brushed my hand over my biceps and was like, oh, good Lord, what is wrong with my arm? And then I was like, wait, do I have upper body muscle? And for literally the first time, I noticed that, in fact, had put on muscle. It was a Christmas present I didn't even know I had been giving myself, XD. Of course, I have been working out for a while now, so I shouldn't be surprised. But I just pay very little attention to my body, as this occasion indicates. And so I literally had no clue working out had made tangible changes until that point. So yeah, very surprised, but pleasantly so. Also, I realized just how weird I am. Everyone else is flexing in the mirror after every time they work out. Me, literally not noticing I'm getting buff for months on end because, lol, I have way more important things on my mind, XD. So, yeah, anyway, that was great. I then paid $20 for all the bacon and eggs I could eat. Sorry, it says each. It says each, but I'm sure it's supposed to say eat. Of which I ate quite a lot. And then I walked over to MD Anderson and proceeded to discover this trip had been pointless to the nth degree. Not only did they only talk to me, not running a single test, aka something they could have done over the phone, instead of demanding I fly all the way out there. But in addition, they literally just said and did the same thing. Oh my gosh, do you know how frustrating this is? What tests did the world experts run on my tumor sample? The is it Hodgkin's lymphoma test. And guess what, people? The big surprise, the tumor you froze 5 months ago is, in fact, still Hodgkin's. I know. Those pesky spontaneous generation cases always need to be ruled out. After all, what if it was now, I don't know, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma? That's why I'm so glad the top lymphoma institution in the world can now assure me that my frozen lump of flesh is still Hodgkin's lymphoma. Thank goodness. Moving past my biting sarcasm, the real reason they tested my tumor at all is because MD Anderson personally diagnoses each cancer it treats. So it wasn't technically pointless, but they still gave me absolutely no new information. And despite my request for particular tests at that. And that was really disappointing because I was very much hoping they might at least test it for like PD-1, the literal protein that Keytruda, the immunotherapy part of salvage that everyone demands I do, inhibits. AKA, see if my cancer even has the switch they want to turn off. But nope, that's not relevant or standard of care. Could someone please explain to me how, for an immunotherapy whose proposed method of action is to literally deactivate a particular checkpoint protein that cancer cells can manifest to keep T cells from killing them? Like, that's literally all it does. It removes your body's checks and balances because we know cancer could be exploiting those checks and balances. How is it not relevant if my particular cancer is actually using those checks and balances against me? This makes no sense to me, like actually none. Also, if I hear the words standard of care one more time, I will strangle 2 kittens, 1 in each hand, with those new biceps, I would imagine. I know MD Anderson can test for PD-1 expression. They literally do it for other cancers at that very center. The only difference is, for my cancer, you have this, quote, silver bullet that just so happens to be as good at killing me as is the cancer. So what? My quality of life is just not relevant? It doesn't matter if this immunotherapy would actually work for me. You might as well just add it to the pile of toxicity, just because you know that way you're covering all your bases. Need I remind you that part of the pile brings with it a 5 to 10% chance of permanently destroying my thyroid gland, requiring me to be on hormone replacement for the rest of my life. Need I remind you it brings with it a 30% chance of crippling neuropathy for 4 months and a small chance that stays forever? It may be just a prescription to you, and heck, why not prescribe a drug that will give you a couple thousand more in profit after all? Want to play it safe, right? Well, for me, this is real. And the decision isn't so easy as, let's add some extra poison for good measure. I want to know if the poison will work on my cancer. And you have the power to give me that information. And yet, you're unwilling because ... Why was it again? This is actually going to drive me insane. And the worst part, he was more conceited than McFarland. This guy literally stopped me as I was explaining why this didn't make sense to me and said, if you're a customer buying a car from a dealership, do you tell them what to do or do you trust the expert? AKA, shut up, kid. I'm the expert here. And on top of that, the analogy doesn't even make sense. Yes, actually, I would demand my car have X specifications and could be demonstrated to meet certain benchmarks of performance. I wouldn't just add the turbo because you might as well, and because the car dealer, who makes a ridiculous profit off such an addition, by the way, quote, highly recommends it. Especially if I knew, depending on my model of car, which you didn't even bother to check, the turbo might not even do anything. Actually, I take it back. It's actually an excellent analogy. And it just goes to show how ridiculous this all is. I am literally your customer. My insurance is literally paying you. So why are all these doctors acting like they're my boss? It's so absurd. It's almost funny. At least it might be if it weren't my literal life that's the punchline. So anyway, what did they say? Pembro GVD with stem cell transplant. Period. It was nice meeting you, Mr. Treat. Utterly a waste of time, money, and faith in humanity. However, the one upside was the doctor's assistant, a biomedical engineering student who was there the whole time, sat down with me and actually tried to answer some of my questions that the doc brushed over. She thought the points I made were reasonable and could tell I wasn't satisfied, so she wanted to try and make it right after the main doc left. She was really nice and also quite smart, though in the end, she didn't really have much extra to say. She said that Hodgkin's just isn't tested for PD-1 or other things. And the big point is, regardless of what the tests show, the protocol was PEM-GVD. So what the doctor was trying to say is there's no point because it wouldn't change the treatment course. Regardless of if my cells are using PD-1 to downregulate my immune system, that's the regime. And fair. But I think it should change the treatment. So yeah, she wasn't really able to answer any of my questions, but she explained what she could, and also she was very kind and intelligent, so I really appreciate her nonetheless. The one really valuable point of information she did give me, though, is that if I take an alternative conventional treatment route before going to PEM-GVD, example BBV or something like that, I'll actually lose the silver bullet as a backup plan for various bureaucratic reasons. So the one thing I did learn is if I don't take the silver bullet now and I try something else, there's a very strong chance I will no longer qualify for the silver bullet. And if I do qualify, it will be an allo stem cell transplant, aka the kind that requires a donor and could kill you just as likely as it will cure you, instead of auto, where they give you back your own stem cells. She couldn't give me a good reason why they couldn't just pull my own stem cells now before I do the other treatment and then just use those instead of doing full-blown allo transplant. Well, except it's not what they do. So yeah, basically MD Anderson only made things so much worse. Because one, now I know I have to choose super toxic death or basically nothing at all. And two, now that the experts have put in their official recommendation, demand, that all the other oncologists can see who is going to go against the public treatment plan of the experts. AKA, now it's likely the case that the doctor that would have given me something other than PEM-GVD and transplant now won't. Lucky me, So glad I flew to Texas to have less options and learn nothing. Oh, and let's not forget, I got to meet another arrogant prick of a doctor. I love that for me, Okay, enough of me whining. I'm sorry. It's just this is immensely frustrating and I needed that little rant. But I'm good now. On with life we go. After that meeting, I waffled a bit, and then Katie and I talked and decided it would be best for me to fly back instead of spending the next 2 days with her like I planned. Hence, I booked an Uber, and he brought me to the airport. Really interesting guy, actually. Very interesting Uber stories. However, once I reached the terminal and booked my tickets, I went to go through security, and they were like, "This boarding pass isn't for this airport." And I was like, what? So guess what, folks? Houston, Texas has 2 airports, and I was at the wrong one. And more than that, my flight left in an hour and a half, and that airport was 45 minutes away. So what did I do? I acted quickly and decisively. XD, I booked a new Uber. Fortunately, I got a guy who drove way too cautiously and could hardly speak English, and thus I just tried to distract myself as the 45-minute drive to the airport took 55 minutes. Here's a pic of Ubering. And then, with 30 minutes before my flight literally left, I happened to be blessed with the shortest lines of security I have ever seen and managed to actually make my flight. On the plane ride back, I listened through the massive playlist of songs Benj had sent me and added the ones I liked, which, lol, was most of them, XD, to my It's Not That Bad playlist. And that took basically the whole flight. I finished getting through his song recommendations right at the end. It's kind of a lot of work sorting through many songs. You have to listen intently until you know if you vibe and then skip it and move the next. I mean, obviously it's not for realsy work, but just saying it was attention intensive. Reminds me of when I sort songs for my instrumental playlists, Anyway, I made it back to Denver, found my car, and made it home. Not gonna lie, I felt pretty down at that point just because of the aforementioned frustrations of the trip, so I was kinda out of it. Hence, after eating food and watching anime for 2 hours, I then decided to open the present Ben stored for me for a rainy day. Hee hee, it's like a letter, but a present instead. And it turned out to be one of those new flower Lego sets, which was honestly just what I needed right then. Very cathartic building Lego again, and just a fun build too. Very nice. Here's a picture. The next day, I woke up at noon still feeling grumpy. Also, I was out of ketosis entirely, which was a huge bummer, because I had worked so hard to try and stay in ketosis the whole Texas trip, but it would seem I ate too much protein and not enough fat, so it pulled me out anyway, which of course made me sad. I missed out on the great food that I could have eaten the whole time I was in the lounge for literally no reason. Vexing, ... I did funime and then did a low effort, just enough to scrape by, job of filling out cancer paperwork for my upcoming call with Dr. Adrian. Got that done. Then I decided to work out, and that definitely helped improve my mood some. From there, I did some small tasks, did food tube, alternated infrared sauna, and 3-minute cold as it can go showers for about 2.5 hours before then going to get Wendy's. But just the burger patties. However, my cold showers had chilled me so much I was very cold and lost feeling in one of my fingers. Just one though. I don't know what's up with that. So, in retrospect, I think I might have overdone it with the infrared sauna / cold shower regimen. And that may not actually be healthy. It took a while of me sitting by the fire and warming back up for a feeling to come back in that finger. Also, the Wendy's just tasted bad, so that was a bummer. Then, because my day had been overall meh, to the lower end of I cracked some letters before going to sleep. The next morning, I still felt out of it. I suspect my emotional state was probably due at least in part to my dietary state because, see, since I had been pulled out of ketosis but was still trying to maintain a keto diet, it was like I was starting from scratch all over again. And so it was likely some keto flu symptoms I was experiencing. I really did nothing useful that morning, and I uncharacteristically wasted that time. After that, I decided to journey to IV nutrition and try a round of IV vitamin C. I didn't plan to start until after I got my CT scan results, but it couldn't hurt to see how the experience was and just get used to the process ahead of time. Plus, I knew they would have to work me up to a therapeutic dose. They put it in my vein instead of my port, which was a touch sad. What's the point of having a surgically inserted tube into your veins if people aren't going to use it? But that was the only time they did that. Since then, they've used my port, and that's been much nicer. I didn't feel too much from the IV vitamin C, basically normal, though I did get a slight headache. That seems to be consistent for me, a slight headache after IV C. After that, I did some small stuff, and then I decided to write a letter to Jordan and give him the cube. And that is exactly what started to bring me out of my funk. I don't know why. That did it, but it did it. XD. After that, I started doing all the chores I had put off, such as washing my vials, folding my clothes, and responding to all the people. I then did funime, read my cancer book, and slept. The next morning, Mrs. James showed up and helped me build a pillbox. She read about how long it takes me in my last life update and spontaneously desired to offer her assistance, which honestly was really cool and well appreciated. Because of her, we got the whole thing done in only 2.5 hours. After that, I did funime, read some, then Dad and I played table tennis, but I was not having it. I then read more before driving to Noah Smith's house to watch Alien with him, John, and Lydia, which was just the worst movie. Not only was it not scary, John was trying to introduce me to the horror genre because I dislike horror, but it was so slow. Oh my gosh, I was just mega bored like the whole time. But on the plus side, I did get to smell chocolate chip cookies Noah made, and I don't think you understand. This was not casual smelling, but rather a very intentional and refined experience. You've never seen someone smell cookies like me. Plus, I also got to meet John's girlfriend, and sneaky type her. She's an ENFP. So the experience was worth it due to those two things. Once I got home, I journaled some and then worked on intentionally reprogramming my perspective because given how cancer was seeming to trend at that point in time, the narrative that has served me thus far in my life clearly wasn't cut out to handle the conditions it was subject to. And see, while I think I was successful in said mental reprogramming, it didn't end up sticking because, as you all know, I ended up getting good news regarding my cancer, and hence, at least for now, my old paradigm is still operational. But, nevertheless, the intentional act of reprogramming my perspective and intentionally choosing the narrative that would best serve me as I go toward hardship and death was still very eye-opening. Like, I can do that. And, lol, so can all of you. Granted, because of my NI, I probably have a talent in this domain that most of you lack, ... But regardless, the experience was very empowering, even if it didn't stick in the end. After that, I went on a brief break, during which I made Half-Life by Livingston my new life anthem. Such a good song. And then I got home and went to sleep. The next day, I attended church, but as soon as that ended, and I do mean as soon as, to the chagrin of some, Grace and I peeled out, got home, and ate. And then me, Grace, Ben, and Benj journeyed to Estes. The drive up was nice, but the rest of the day sucked. We did nothing, and Grace wanted an event without a leader, which meant absolutely nothing happened, and decisions took actually 30 minutes each. It was actually miserable. My TE died so hard the whole time. But the one fun thing is we went to the Estes library, and the checker set that I remember from when I was 7 was still there. So it was fun playing checkers on that. Little SI moment right there. Once I got home, I just felt dead. But upon being productive and reading some of my cancer books, I recuperated enough energy to play Benj in racquetball. And the games were all super close, but he still won 5-1. So yeah, that made the day better, and then once we finished that, I slept. The next morning, I did small stuff, went to work, read some, then I got home, did Funime, played Magic with Brayden, and then it was off to my CT scan for what I felt certain was going to be bad news. Also, I almost had them not to do contrast, because the WACK cancer lady I was reading, and who has already been mentioned, and who says I should pull out all my teeth, said that it could speed up my cancer growth. But they were like, are you sure? Because no one does a CT scan without contrast. And then I did some brief research and was like, oh, without contrast, you can't see the borders of the tumor, ... AKA, without contrast, this scan is completely useless. So thankfully, I didn't get my OG way. And I had the scan done with contrast, which always feels just lovely, by the way. Once I got home from that, I felt mega nauseous because, lol, you're supposed to fast before getting contrast. And I did not do that because I didn't know I was getting contrast. Hence, I just zombie watched anime and then took a long shower before my nausea died down, and I was able to do a bit of cancer reading before going to sleep. The next morning, my results from the CT scan came in, but I intentionally chose not to look at them as part of my aforementioned reprogramming. Plus, I had plans for the day, and I didn't want to ruin them by being sad. Hence, I just carried on with my day, did my first therapeutic IV vitamin C, which I'm shortening to IVC from now on, XD, and that took 4 hours. But, thankfully, I was able to read during it, so it was all good. I read half of my iodine book during that time. I then ate quickly before driving over to Ben's, and me, him, and Benj went driving all around trying to find some place that would give us 1,500 worth of dimes. More challenging than you might think, XD. But we eventually did. Though they had to ship them in, so we didn't get to pick them up, which was a sad ... Hence, the actual coin roll hunting event was postponed for another day. Once that was postponed, I then decided to go home and look at my results and was immensely pleasantly surprised at what I found, as described in my last cancer update. I then told the family plus Benj about the good news before then playing some racquetball with Benj and then getting back home and writing the email to tell all of you. That night was like a torrent of NI had been dammed up inside me and all got released at once. I compulsively started thinking about the future, all the things I had pushed down because it didn't look like things were going well and there was no point. And it was WACK. Like, I couldn't fall asleep because so many dreams, worries, goals, and hopes just filled my mind like I was drinking from a fire hose. And as annoying as it was, I couldn't sleep. Nevertheless, I was so happy to feel free to dream again. Like, gosh, you have no idea how much of a difference that makes to me, ... So yeah, I eventually got some sleep, though not much, and the next day arrived. Upon the morrow, I called with a certain Dr. Adrian, and oh my gosh, she's intelligent. Almost guarantee she's an INTP, and you can just smell the expertise reeking through the screen. XD. Like, actually so smart. Super glad Becky put me in contact with her. And speaking of Becky, I then went directly to meet up with her as soon as the call ended. That meeting was far less significant, but still good. Once I got back home, I did Funame, called William the Great Varley, and did small stuff. Did Funame round 2, worked out, and then I remembered that I get $60 worth of printing credits each semester as a part of my tuition fee of attending CSU, which, if you don't use, you lose. So in part because of that, but mostly because the idea popped into my head during the previous NI Firehose night, I decided I wanted to print out my entire life history till 18 doc that I spent approximately 3 months making before I left for the trip, and every doc it linked to, aka everything I wrote until I was 18. Well, it turns out I wrote a lot before I was 18, and even though I spent the next 3.5 hours at CSU literally just printing, I didn't finish the project and eventually ran out of money, lol, and time. I started at 9 and went home around 12:30. So yeah, I did till bed, ate a bit, and then slept. The next morning was IVC, which took 3 hours. I did Funame, worked on revising my magic decks, and finished with red. So now I only have green, multicolored, and artifacts to go. Then Emerson and Katie came over to celebrate my previous good news, and we did by eating a ton of sugar, aka I ate 3 donuts and like a half a box of Tim Tams, with milk, of course, wink. First off, the sugar was so good, like you have no idea. Second off, you may be wondering what on earth I'm thinking, but I promise the choice was intentional. The short version is that Dr. Adrian said I should get off the ketogenic diet as it's not sustainable, and I was only doing so well so far because I was using the reserves of all the vitamins and minerals my body had stored from my 3 months of very healthy eating. And second, according to my own reasoning, IVC works best when cells are dividing. And given it seemed likely that, per the last CT scan, my cells were not doing that and were likely metabolically in hibernation, by waking them up with a blast of sugar and getting them to divide again, I would hopefully increase efficacy of my IVC treatment. Ironic, I know. I need my cancer to grow so I can better kill it, but that's what theory would dictate, at least as I understand it thus far. It's like fishing, you know? You gotta let some slack, and then you gotta reel, and you gotta let a little slack, and you gotta reel. It's the whole it's like winding up almost, you know? You let the fish recoil a little, then you yank them harder when they're not expecting it, as opposed to just pulling in the fish. Well, I don't know why I said any of that. I don't fish. I don't know why I said any of that. Okay, so yeah, I ate a bunch of sugar and watched Makia with the girls, which was kind of meh experience because Emerson didn't want to cry and so wouldn't take it seriously. Okay. My inferior FI demands a sort of reverence around such emotional works of art, ... Once that wrapped up, we went back to my house and did a study session, which I found very nice, before we all went to bed. Also, I finished yet another cancer book. I am now on my 10th out of 30 XD. The next morning, I went to work early, 8, because my worker needed someone to cover their shift, and lol, being at work is basically just getting paid to do what I would do anyway. So I was so down. Hence, I came in early and basically spent the entire 9-hour shift until 5 working on printing and organizing the documents from my till 18 doc. You have no idea how much I have written in my life. And this is just until I turned 18. XD. Well, actually, you're about to have an idea, because I have a picture for you. Wow, that's a lot of book. Wow. Wow. All right. You see those binders? Yeah, that's my till 18 docs. Now, to be fair, about 1.5 of those binders are words composed by other people. Since I printed out conversations, and it's a mix of my words and theirs. But the rest of it, all me. Those binders contain 1,930 pages, as well as my 2 books that I wrote during that time of my life. Ooh, is that foreshadowing? Now you see why it took me so long to print them all and to hole punch them for the binders. It's about $100 just for the paper I used. So yeah, really cool to see all that in written form. And also just to be able to walk through my evolution as a human through those documents. If any of you really want to get to know me, you now have options, XD. That literally contains everything I wrote, as well as basically all my memories thanks to the Till 18 doc. So if anyone ever reads it all, which I sincerely doubt will ever happen, but we can dream, right, XD? They would have as good a grasp on who I am, or at least who I was until I turned 18, as I could portray. But seeing as how just reading the Till 18 doc on the trip took like 7 hours, yeah, really doubt anyone's going to be taking me up on that. And also, lol, what I want them to? Everything includes some things I would rather not share. Thank you very much, XD. Foreshadowing. Regardless, got that project down, and even though my shift technically ended at 4, I decided to just clock out and stay the extra hour so I could actually finish getting the paper hole punched for the 3-ring binders. Coincidentally, the dance instructor lady, Corey, showed up then, so that was cool. Once I got home, I did Funame with Grace, worked on revising magic decks, went on a run, and listened to Mistborn. Did some more Funame with Grace, and then slept. Saturday, I had a super speedy vitamin C infusion where they gave me the whole dose in just an hour and a half. Did not feel great with that, ... But it did allow me to make it back home to eat and then get to Monday night for the Magic pre-release event Joe and I hosted. It was a pretty great time. I came in second with my 10-land deck. They said it wouldn't work. Well, proved them wrong. I then went on a drive and had a good conversation with Joe until like 10 or something. And then I got home and did Food and Arcane. Oh, dude. Oh, yeah. Wink. Because the new season dropped and it is big good. Yeah, it's really good. As for yesterday, I woke up early and drove John to the airport. The conversation we're in consisting of his take on politics. Because, lol, apparently Trump got elected. The degree to which I am indifferent to that fact would astonish many of you. And also what he should watch out for dating an ENFP. On the way back from that drive, I decided to stop at Buc-ee's for gas, and it was super cheap. Plus, they have really nice restrooms, which I didn't realize prior, and these 2 facts combined helped me understand why the franchise has such a following. I then got to church, socialized, and confirmed Beth as an ENFJ. Pretty crazy we have 2 at Southgate, given how rare they are. And then proceeded to go home, do Foucaine, play lame volleyball at the Myers house, and some good cancer reading done, explain health genetic stuff to Nessa, do more Foucaine, only to realize they're releasing the season on Netflix in 3-episode batches, so I'm going to have to wait for the next batch, which sucks, ... I then played racquetball with Benj before chilling in the car bed and lighting fire on cave walls with isopropyl alcohol with Benj, Nessa, and Grace. 'Twas a good time, and here are some pictures. And once again, you have read through yet another life update. Congratulations! Here's a gold star.